Hello dear students of the third secondary stage and welcome to a new lesson. Today we're going to deal with Unit 5, Chapter 5 of the story Great Expectations. Let's start. We're going to start with the characters list. Miss Havisham, a rich elderly lady. Mr. Jaggers, a lawyer, Hammy. Matthew Pocket, Miss Havisham's cousin, father of Herbert Pocket, Pepsi teacher in London. Mr. Wemmick, Mr. Jaggers' clerk. Herbert Pocket, a relative of Miss Havisham, who Pip will live with in London. Stella, Miss Havisham's adopted daughter. طبعا adopted daughter هي ابنة بالتبني. Miss Havisham's half brother يعني أخ غير شقيق، يعني أخو Miss Havisham الغير شقيق. Miss Havisham's fiancé. طبعا fiancé دي كلمة في الأصل فرنسية بمعنى خطيب، يعني خطيب Miss Havisham. Startup, a man who is staying with Herbert Pocket and Pip. Bentley Drummel, a man who is staying with Herbert Pocket and Pip. Now, dear friends, we're gonna shift to the text. طبعا احنا عارفين ان the teller of the story is Pip. بيقول ايه بقى؟ I visited Miss Havisham wearing my new clothes. I have been given a fortune since I last saw you, Miss Havisham. I said. ده مين بيقول كده؟ Yes, bravo. اللي قال كده هو طبعا Pip. And I am so grateful. وأنا شاكر للجميل جدا. فردت عليه وقالت له I know, she replied. And you have a good life ahead of you. But remember to follow Mr. Jagger's advice. افتكر ان انت تتبع نصيحة Mr. Jagger. She looked pleased as I said goodbye, and I felt sure that she was my secret benefactor. طبعا benefactor بمعنى متبرع يعني. After all, Mr. Jaggers had told me that I was to be educated in London by Mr. Matthew Pocket. يعني اللي هيعلمني في لندن هو Mr. Matthew Pocket. One of Miss Havisham's relatives, هو أحد أقارب Miss Havisham. When I was sitting on the coach to London the next day, after a quick goodbye to Joe. طبعا هنا خدوا بالكم إن coach بمعنى أتوبيس سفر. تمام؟ بعدين بيقول لنا after a quick goodbye to Joe. بعد ما يعني ودعت جو وداع سريع. My sister and Biddy وكمان ودعت أختي وبيدي. I felt as though the whole world was waiting for me. It was 5 long hours before I arrived at Mr. Jagger's office in London. His clerk, الموظف بتاعه, Mr. Wemmick, explained that because Mr. Jaggers was still at work. قال له موظف اللي عند Mr. Jaggers اللي هو اسمه Mr. Wemmick قال له إني Mr. Jaggers is still at work. I should wait for him in his office. يجب أننا ننتظره في المكتب بتاعه. It was an unpleasant place. مكان يعني غير صار على الإطلاق. And I was sad that I had left the blacksmith. وأنا شعرت بالحزن إن أنا تركت ورشة الحدادة. When Mr. Jaggers returned, he said that I should go to my lodgings اللي هي at Barnard's Inn, where I would share rooms with Mr. Matthew Pocket's son. هناك سأشارك ابن Mr. Matthew Pocket الرooms بتاعته. He wanted to take me to his father's house in a few days' time so that I could meet my new teacher. Here is some money, Pip, Mr. Jaggers continued. Mr. Jaggers يعني قدم له بعض المال. It is a lot of money. طب ليه كده يا Mr. Jaggers يعني؟ But don't worry, ما تقلقش. I will know how much you spent. In case there are any difficulties, this was good news. I felt happier now, and I agreed to go to my lodgings with Mr. Wemmick. He told me that Mr. Matthew Pocket lived in Hammersmith, 5 miles away. دي تبعد قد إيه؟ 5 miles away. تبعد 5 أميال. When we came to Barnard's Inn, I was disappointed. طبعا احنا عارفين ان inn بمعنى حانة أو فندق صغير. I was disappointed. أنا كنت محبط جدا. It looked dusty and gloomy. طبعا dusty بمعنى مليء بالأتربة أو الغبار and gloomy وكئيب. Mr. Wemmick left me at the door, but no one answered it. I thought that no one would come and let me in. قعدت بقى على الباب كتير. يعني اعتقدت إنه مفيش حد ممكن يجي ويسمح لي بالدخول. But after about half an hour, I heard footsteps. بعد حوالي نص ساعة سمعت يعني وقع أقدام. A tall, thin, young man appeared. راجل طويل كده نحيف شاب ظهر. Mr. Pip, he asked. I'm sorry, I went to buy some fruit at the supermarket, and I thought you would arrive later than this. He invited me in. الحمد لله يعني دعا للدخول. It was only when he turned to speak to me in the light of the window. التفت للحديث إلى بيب في ضوء النافذة that I saw who he was. شفت هو مين الشخص ده. The pale young gentleman, Herbert Pocket, was the pale young man. He was not handsome. لم يكن وسيما. But his face was cheerful. كان وجهه مرحا. And I liked him at once. حبيت هذا الشخص في الحال. However, I had a strange feeling that he would never become rich. We immediately began talking. بدأنا الحديث في التو في الحال. I discovered that Miss Havisham had once thought she might adopt Herbert. اكتشفت إني Miss Havisham فكرت يوما ما إن هي ربما تتبنى Herbert. So she had invited him to visit her. دعيته إنه هو يزورها. That was on the day that I had met Herbert. ده كان في اليوم اللي أنا قابلت فيه Herbert. And fought with him in the garden. واتخانقت معاه في الحديقة. After the visit, however, Herbert was not invited to Miss Havisham's again. يقول لنا بعد تلك الزيارة Herbert لم يدعى إلى منزل Miss Havisham ثانية. She didn't think I was suitable, Herbert told me, but if she had adopted me, I would probably be rich now, and if that had happened, then I might even be Stella's fiancé too. طبعا عارفين إن fiancé اللي هو خطيب girl يعني أو واحدة ست خطيبها بنقول عليه fiancé بيبقى يكون مكتوب بالشكل ده وكلمة أصلها فرنسي. طبعا أنا لو حطيت إيه كمان في النهاية بيبقى الخطيبة بقى كلمة تشير لخطيبة الشخص أو الست أو البنت اللي أنت خطبتها بنقول عليها fiancé برضو بس بتبقى في إيه زيادة في النهاية. You must be disappointed, I said. No, not at all, he replied. I think I have had a lucky escape. Stella is proud and cruel. Miss Havisham adopted her. You know, she wants to use her. هي عايزة إيه؟ تستخدمها to take revenge on men. take revenge on معناها إيه؟ طبعا ينتقم من. ينتقم من مين؟ ينتقم من الرجال. Yes, I was very surprised. كنت مندهش جدا. Stella was adopted. يعني تم تبنيها. Why did Miss Havisham want to use her in such a strange way? ليه مس هافشام عايزة تستخدمها بالطريقة الغريبة دي؟ When we sat down to eat, Herbert continued to tell me about Miss Havisham. First, however, he told me how to behave at the dinner table. قال لي ازاي اتصرف على ترابيزة السفرة. For which I was grateful. وانا كنت شاكر له هذا الجميل. I soon discovered from Herbert that Mr. Jaggers was Miss Havisham's lawyer. اكتشفت سريعا من هربرت ان جاجرز كان المحامي بتاع Miss Havisham. Mr. Jaggers had suggested that Herbert's father, Mr. Matthew Paulgate, should be my teacher in London. I was convinced يعني أقنعت. I was convinced now that Miss Havisham was my secret benefactor. يعني اقتنعت دلوقتي إني Miss Havisham كانت المتبرعة السرية لي. Herbert told me more about Miss Havisham. أخبره بالكثير عن Miss Havisham. He explained that when she was a young woman, she and her half-brother had inherited a fortune from the father. طبعا inherited, he wanted to have her money and he started to think about how he could get it from her. وكان عايز ياخد فلوسها وبدأ يفكر ازاي ممكن يحصل على هذا المال منها. He didn't care if he had to hurt her to get it. Soon afterwards, بعد ذلك مباشرة, Miss Havisham got engaged. اتخطبت Miss Havisham. During this time, she gave most of her fortune, يعني ادت معظم ثروتها, to her fiancé, لخطيبها. This was against the advice of her cousin, Matthew Paulgate, who warned her not to trust her future husband too much. يعني هي عملت عكس النصيحة بتاعت مين؟ بتاعت her cousin اللي هو ماثيو باكيت. حذرها إن هي لا تثق في زوجها في المستقبل أو زوج المستقبل كثيرا. Miss Havisham became very angry with Matthew Paulgate and ordered him to leave her house. He has never been there since. Is your father still angry with Miss Havisham for ordering him to leave? I asked Herbert. No, he's not angry at all, replied Herbert. But when Miss Havisham sent him away that day, she said that he wanted to get her money himself. If he visited her now, it would look as if he still wanted her money. On the morning of the wedding, when everything was ready and the guests were expected, there was some bad news. طبعا أنا ممكن أنطقها في البرج English news. ممكن أقول news. Miss Havisham's fiancé had left her. She received the news at 20 to 9 in the morning. While she was getting dressed, ever since that time, more than 25 years ago, neither Miss Havisham nor her house had changed at all. لا منزل مس هافشم ولا هي نفسها اتغيروا على الإطلاق على مدار 25 years، على مدار أكثر من 25 years. Even the clocks in the house had been stopped. حتى الساعات اللي على الحائط توقفت. But why didn't Miss Havisham's fiancé marry her? ليه اتجوزها؟ I asked. He would have had all her property then. Perhaps طبعا property معنى ممتلكات أو متعلقات. Perhaps he was already married. ربما يكون هو بالفعل متزوج. Herbert said. ده كلام Herbert. It seemed that the fiancé had in fact planned everything with Miss Havisham's half-brother, hoping to take as much money from her as they could. يبدو وكأن هذا الخطيب قد خطط لكل شيء مع مين؟ مع ميس هافيشم's half-brother، أخو ميس هافيشم الغير شقيق، hoping to take، على أمل إنه ياخد يعني أكبر قدر من المال from her as they could، على قد ما يقدروا يعني. Nobody knew if the two men were still alive or not. The following day I was taken to meet the Pocket family at their home in Hammersmith in West London. في اليوم التالي قد أخذت لمقابلة the Pocket family. فين؟ at their home. فين؟ في Hammersmith في غرب لندن. They lived by the river in an old house. كانوا عايشين في منزل قديم بالقرب من النهر. When we arrived, we found Herbert's younger brothers and sisters playing noisily in the garden. لما وصلنا لقينا إخوات وأخوات هربرت الصغيرين بيلعبوا بشكل صاخب في الحديقة. Despite the place being very ordinary, it was a happy house. And I immediately felt comfortable there. وأنا شعرت بالإيه؟ بالراحة أو الارتياح هناك. Mr. Matthew Pocket and his wife were as cheerful as their son and made me welcome. يعني كان هو وزوجته كانوا مرحين ورحبوا بي كتير. After they showed me my room، بعد ما وروني غرفتي، they introduced me to two other young men who were also staying there. قدموا لي 2 من الشباب كانوا مقيمين هناك. We soon got to know each other very well. تعرفنا ببعض سريعا. Startup was good-natured. كان راجل يعني طيب الطباع. But Bentley Drama was proud and grumpy. كان راجل كده يعني متفاخر بنفسه، وجرومبي يعني سيء المزاج أو سيء الطباع. I was learning how to live like a young gentleman and improving my education. كنت بتعلم ازاي أعيش زي يعني شاب gentleman من طبقة راقية، يعني gentleman شاب نبيل المحتد يعني and improving my education، وازاي احسن من التعليم بتاعي because I would be very rich one day. اكون غني في يوم ما. Mr. Jaggers gave me more money. Mr. Jaggers اداني فلوس اكتر whenever I asked. في اي وقت انا كنت بطلب يعني. Which was quite often. I noticed however that he never laughed. حسيت انه عمره ما ضحك. and everyone seemed scared of him. وكل الناس تبدو إن هي خايفة منه. One day, while waiting in Mr. Jagger's office, I had a conversation. أثناء انتظاري في مكتب Mr. Jagger, I had a conversation with Mr. Wemmick about Mr. Jagger's work. يعني كان بينه وبين Mr. Wemmick conversation بشأن Mr. Jagger's work. عمل Mr. Jagger's. I noticed that Mr. Wemmick was proudly wearing a ring. لابس خاتم كده بشكل يعني فيه تفاخر يعني. He told me that it was a present from people he had worked with. قال له تعرف إن ده هدية من الناس اللي كنت شغال معاهم. I was invited to Mr. Wemmick's house. لقد دعيت لي منزل Mr. Wemmick. He lived with his father. كان عايش مع باباه some distance from the center of London. على مسافة من يعني وسط لندن. In a strange building في مبنى غريب that looked like a small wooden castle. والذي كان يبدو وكأنه قلعة صغيرة من الخشب. Mr. Wemmick told me that all of London's criminals were afraid of Mr. Jagger's. قال له إن كل المجرمين اللي في لندن أو مجرمين بتوع لندن كانوا خايفين من Mr. Jagger's, so they left him alone. لذلك تركوه لوحده. I learned that تعلمت إن Mr. Jagger's didn't even lock his house at night. عرفت يعني هنا learned معنى عرفت إن Mr. Jagger's didn't even lock his house at night. ما بيقفلش حتى بيته بالليل. And often said, I want to see the man who'll dare to rob me. أنا عايز أشوف الراجل اللي يجرؤ إنه هو يسرقني أو يسطو على منزلي يعني. Now, dear friends, we're gonna shift it to the exercise. بيقول لنا match the words and phrases to the definitions. معنا clerk موظف, lodgings, adopt, grumpy, fiancé, be convinced, half brother, inherit, jealous, get engaged, dare, take revenge on, share. معنا definitions. Our definition number one بيقول لنا to often be in a bad mood, to be strong or brave enough, a person who works in an office, feeling unhappy and angry because someone else has something you want, someone who is the son of one of your parents, a man who has agreed to marry someone. Now, dear friends, let's match. طبعا to often be in a bad mood means grumpy, يعني سيء المزاج أو سريع الانفعال أو الغضب يعني grumpy. Number two, to be strong or brave enough. Yes, bravo. To dare بمعنى يجرؤ. في تعبير كده كتير بنسمعه حد يقول للتاني how dare you كيف تجرؤ على ذلك. Number three, a person who works in an office. طبعا ده بيكون موظف أكيد. Clerk. Yes. Feeling unhappy and angry because someone else has something you want. شعورك إن أنت وأنت غير سعيد أو غاضب إن شخص آخر has something لديه شيء أو لديه شيء ليس لديك وأنت تحتاجه يعني. فطبعا برافو هيكون jealous of you مش jealous for you. خدوا بالكم jealous of يعني غيور من و jealous for غيور على. Number five, someone who is the son of one of your parents. شخص هو ابن أحد آبائك أو أحد الوالدين يعني. طبعا ده بيكون أكيد half brother يعني أخ غير شقيق. Number 6. A man who has agreed to marry someone. Yes, excellent. هيكون yes, fiancé. Now, dear students, let's shift to another group of definitions. Number 7 بيقول لنا a place to live. Number 8, to receive something from someone else, usually in a will. Number 9, to agree to marry someone and give them a ring. 10, to be completely sure that something is true. Number 11, to do something bad to someone who was unpleasant to you. 12, a part of something that had been divided. 13, to legally take someone else's child into your family. Now, dear friends, let's match. A place to live in هيكون yes, bravo. هيكون lodgings. Number 8, to receive something from someone else, usually in a will. Yes, bravo. Inherit. Number 9, to agree to marry someone and give them a ring. Bravo. Get engaged. 10, to be completely sure that something is true. طبعا هتكون be convinced. 11, to do something bad to someone who was unpleasant to you. Yes, terrific. Take revenge on. 12, a part of something that has been divided. Very good. Sure. 13, to legally take someone else's child into your family هيكون طبعا adopt يتبنى. Now, dear friends, we've come to the end of this lesson. Wishing good luck and bye-bye.
فهمت الدرس؟ ده وقت التطبيق مع تدريبات واختبارات نافس. حمل الآن.